Hello, my loves. It's Luna Celestine. I want you to take a breath, not a shallow one, but deep into the truth of where you are right now. Because this Saturn retrograde, it isn't here to make your life feel gentle or affirm your comfort zone. It's not coming in softly with feathers and mantras. No, this one is different. Saturn has entered its retrograde phase with the full weight of karmic correction, and it's about to confront everything in your life that was built on illusion, avoidance, or denial. That identity you've outgrown, but still cling to like a costume. That relationship that drains your soul but you excuse out of habit. The coping mechanisms you've convinced yourself are harmless, but are slowly numbing your vitality. Saturn is going straight for them. Not to punish you, but because it's time. What's being asked of you now isn't aesthetic alignment or curated growth. This is foundational. Saturn doesn't strip you bare to shame you. It strips you so you can finally see what never truly belonged to you. If you've been living in patterns that keep you small, performing to be accepted, or staying loyal to a version of yourself that was built on survival, this retrograde is about to unravel that. It's not personal. It's necessary. Because Saturn is not interested in your potential, it's interested in what you've actually built. The systems, the discipline, the integrity underneath it all. And if what you've built was rooted in fear or fakery, it won't hold. It can't. In this video, we're going deep into the 9 brutal but liberating lessons Saturn retrograde is forcing into your life right now. And when I say forcing, I don't mean with cruelty. I mean with clarity, with urgency, with divine timing. If your soul has been whispering that something isn't right, Saturn's about to raise the volume until you can't ignore it. So let's talk about what's collapsing, what's breaking open, and what finally has the chance to become real. Because ready or not, this retrograde is the turning point. The first lesson Saturn delivers is one of false safety. Those structures, those people, those routines you've used as scaffolding for your sense of stability. The job title that gave you validation. The predictable paycheck that quieted your fear. The friend group that made you feel like you belonged even when you weren't being seen. All of it, Saturn is eyeing like dead weight. And not because those things are inherently bad, but because somewhere along the way, you started mistaking comfort for growth. You stayed in rooms that didn't stretch you. You repeated habits that numbed your edges, and you made peace with a life that no longer spoke your name. So now, without apology or ceremony, Saturn is removing the crutches, and when it happens, it will feel like loss. But it's not. It's a sacred extraction. You are not being punished. You are being pulled out of emotional paralysis, out of the shell of the life you once needed, but now only delays your becoming. And right behind that collapse comes the second reckoning, the choice between image and soul. Saturn doesn't allow duality anymore. You can't hold both. The version of you that smiles on cue, says the right things, fits the mold, collects applause from the crowd. And the version of you that wants to scream, that craves truth, that knows damn well you've been shrinking just to stay liked. This is the line in the sand. If your validation still depends on external approval, on how well you perform being fine, this retrograde is going to break that mask open. You will feel it in your body, in your exhaustion, in the aching disconnect between who you pretend to be and who you really are. Saturn doesn't care about your optics. It cares about your alignment. And if the person you show the world is just a performance stitched together by fear of rejection, then the world will begin to mirror back your own fragmentation. Conversations will shift, relationships will strain, and you'll realize that trying to be palatable to everyone is costing you the one thing you were born to protect, your soul. So now it's decision time. Will you keep curating yourself to stay acceptable, or will you start risking being real? Because only one of those paths leads to peace. Only one leads home. Saturn isn't making this easy. It's making it honest, and once Saturn has stripped away your comforts and shattered the illusion that you can keep living split in two, one part real, the other rehearsed, it does something even more unforgiving, even more precise. It circles back, not to haunt you, but to hold you accountable. This is the phase where all the small betrayals of self, of others, of purpose begin to resurface. That conversation you avoided because it felt too uncomfortable, that promise you quietly broke when no one was watching, that dream you shelved halfway through because it asked too much of you, all of it is back, and this time it's not knocking gently. Saturn remembers the patterns you hoped would be forgotten. It tracks your avoidance like a ledger, and when retrograde hits, it demands the bill be paid. But this isn't punishment. This is clarity with interest. The consequences that once whispered now speak fluently, in delays, in detours, in the invisible resistance you feel in everything you try to do. Your timing is off. Your energy feels stuck. Opportunities start slipping, and none of it is random. You're not cursed. You're being shown where your foundation has cracks, where your discipline was hollow, where your intentions never matured into action. This is the moment where Saturn forces you to confront the uncomfortable truth that what you buried didn't die. It waited, and just when you think it can't get more raw, Saturn turns outward. It puts a spotlight on the collective theater we've all been participating in, the masks, the personas, the carefully filtered versions of ourselves that we've performed in exchange for validation, admiration, status. And here's where it gets brutal. Not only does Saturn strip your mask, it exposes those around you who have worn theirs too long, the ones who've spoken in enlightenment but lived in shadow, the leaders who built platforms on borrowed wisdom but never did the inner work, the spiritual guides, the mentors, the influencers who have postured themselves as awakened but are secretly addicted to control, attention, or unchecked ego. These figures will be called out not in private, but in front of the very communities they tried to impress. And again, it's not cruelty, it's spiritual surgery, because truth, when it arrives, rarely asks for permission. And Saturn doesn't care about how polished your reputation is if the roots of it were grown in pretense. This is not just a purge of lies. It's an invitation to rebirth. You don't get to ascend while hiding behind a facade. You don't get to evolve while pretending to have it all together. The curtain is falling, not to disgrace you, but to finally let the real version of you breathe. And for some, that will feel like a collapse, but for those who are ready to be seen in their truth, even if it's messy, unfinished, or vulnerable, it will feel like resurrection. Saturn isn't asking for perfection. It's demanding authenticity. And this time, there is no backdoor, no shortcut, no filter strong enough to hide behind. Only the real will rise. And once the illusions have been shattered and the masks begin to fall, Saturn doesn't let you rest. It turns its gaze inward, into the small, private hours of your life where the truth of who you are is written not in your dreams, but in your habits. This is where many people fall. Not because they lack vision, but because they lack discipline. You see, Saturn doesn't care how inspired you are when you write your intentions under the full moon. It's watching what you do on the random Tuesday afternoon when no one's holding you accountable. It's watching how many times you scroll past your purpose, delay the hard things, negotiate with excuses, reward yourself for almosts, and promise to start again next week. And if those habits have become reflexes, if you've allowed comfort to masquerade as self-care or distraction to pass as downtime, Saturn's retrograde will show you just how much those invisible choices are costing you, not in theory, but in reality. Missed opportunities, emotional fatigue, financial strain, creative blocks. What once seemed harmless, a little procrastination, a few too many late nights, the chronic postponement of your power, now begins to crystallize into patterns that steer your life away from alignment and straight into chaos. This isn't about moral failure. It's about energetic consequences. You either lead your habits with intention or they will lead you into your undoing. There's no middle path left, and while you're being asked to take radical ownership of your routines, Saturn doesn't stop there. It activates your relationships, not as support systems, but as diagnostic mirrors. Every person in your life right now, especially the ones causing tension, discomfort, betrayal, or confusion, is serving as a messenger, whether they know it or not. That friend who starts pulling away for no clear reason, the partner whose presence feels heavier than healing, the family member who always finds a way to press your most wounded buttons. They're not just here to frustrate you, they're Saturn's curriculum. They are revealing where you still abandon yourself for peace, where you give your power away to be accepted, where your boundaries are too porous or too punitive. You might be tempted to label them toxic or dismiss them as distractions, but the deeper truth is they are teaching you. Some of these souls were never meant to stay. They were karmic contracts sent to awaken your clarity, your voice, your capacity to walk away without guilt. And yes, it will hurt. It will feel like loss. But what if it's not abandonment, but divine release? What if the betrayal was the blessing that finally showed you where you've been betraying yourself? Saturn retrograde doesn't just clean out your calendar, it clears your karmic landscape. So if someone is leaving, let them. If someone's energy feels off, trust that. If a connection feels like a weight instead of a bridge, it probably is. Every dynamic right now is either accelerating your evolution or anchoring you to your past. And the longer you try to drag expired relationships into your next chapter, the heavier your spirit will become. Let the dead leaves fall. Let the mirroring hurt. Let the silence speak. Because Saturn isn't removing people from your life to make you lonely. It's making space for you to finally see yourself without distortion. And in that space, you begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And now we arrive at the core of Saturn's demand, the price. Because despite what the world tries to sell you, there is no dream, no destiny, no true breakthrough that comes without sacrifice. Saturn does not barter in wishful thinking. It does not grant elevation because you've written your desires in a journal or whispered affirmations into the mirror. It measures your readiness by what you're willing to lose, not what you hope to gain. And often, the cost is steep, not because the universe is cruel, but because what you're asking for is sacred. You will have to give up something real, your time, your approval rating, your carefully constructed image, the old role you've played so convincingly that you've started to forget it's not who you really are. You don't get to keep your safety net and leap into transformation. You don't get to keep the applause and find your own voice. If you're truly ready to rise, you will have to let go of the parts of you that were built to survive, not thrive. Saturn wants to know, are you willing to be misunderstood, to be seen as selfish, strange, or even reckless? If that's what it takes to be honest with yourself, are you willing to disappoint the expectations you've outgrown in order to live the truth you've barely admitted to yourself? And here's the illusion. Saturn now breaks with surgical precision the lie that you still have time, that you can delay your becoming until everything feels more aligned, more convenient, more certain, that somehow the perfect moment will arrive dressed in clarity and calm. But Saturn doesn't deal in fantasy. This retrograde is not a pause. It's a deadline, a countdown disguised as stillness. You think you're preparing when really you're stalling. And the truth is, there are moments, portals, windows that do not stay open forever. There is a cost to hesitation, and it doesn't always show up as a loud crash. Sometimes it's just a slow erosion. The opportunity that never circles back. The intuition you ignored until it turned silent. The version of you that withered waiting for permission. If you keep telling yourself you'll leap when you're ready, Saturn will make sure you see what happens when you wait too long, and there will be no rewind, no bargaining. Just the echo of the door that could have led to everything, now closed. This is not meant to instill fear, but urgency. Not to pressure you, but to wake you. The time is not later, it's now. And perhaps the most humbling, disarming lesson Saturn brings, the messenger. Because in this chapter, truth will not always arrive in gentle packaging. It may not come from a mentor you admire, a friend you trust, or a voice you already respect. Sometimes the truth is delivered by someone you resent, someone whose energy grates on you, whose tone feels abrasive, whose presence you'd rather ignore, a critic, a stranger, an ex, a troll. And yet, there it is, the sting of their words, sharp and uninvited, but strangely accurate. And you'll want to dismiss it. You want to say, they don't know you, that they're being cruel, projecting, wrong. But beneath the ego bruise, if you're brave enough to sit with the discomfort, you might find a reflection you've been refusing to face. Saturn uses unlikely messengers because it's not trying to flatter you, it's trying to grow you. And sometimes growth requires a mirror so raw, so unfiltered, that you can't spin it or rationalize it away. The real test is, can you extract the medicine from the mess? Can you hear the lesson even when the voice delivering it is one you'd rather mute? Because the universe is always speaking. The question is, are you only willing to listen when it sounds the way you want it to? And if you are still here, still watching, still listening, then Saturn has not given up on you, which means you shouldn't either. Let this retrograde crack you open, not to destroy, but to reveal. Because the you that's waiting on the other side of this isn't fragile, performative, or afraid. It's the version of you that can't be denied, the one built in truth, not tactics, the one ready now. So if everything feels heavy right now, if your days carry a strange ache, a disorientation you can't quite name, if you look around and nothing feels solid anymore, not your relationships, not your desires, not even your own voice, understand this. You are not broken. You are being restructured. This isn't just a hard phase you need to get through. It's a spiritual purge. Saturn didn't come to destroy your life, it came to dismantle the version of it that was never fully yours to begin with. The one built on borrowed dreams, survival strategies, masked ambition, and silent suffering. The life you curated to appear successful but secretly felt like a slow suffocation. That life was never meant to last. And now, Saturn is pulling the thread, unraveling it stitch by stitch, until all that remains is the raw material of who you really are. And yes, it will feel like loss. Yes, you will grieve the stability that used to comfort you, even if it kept you small. Yes, you will feel naked without your usual labels, unsure without your usual rhythms. But this space, this sacred, chaotic, unbearable space, is the birthplace of your truth. Saturn's retrograde doesn't offer easy answers. It doesn't give you timelines, promises, or guarantees. What it gives you is a mirror, and the courage to look into it without turning away, to ask the harder questions, not, how do I fix this? But what part of me created this? Not, when will I feel better? But what is this pain trying to show me? Because Saturn is not interested in your comfort. It's interested in your awakening. It will not lull you back to sleep with false positivity or bypass your wounds with spiritual fluff. It will make you sit with your contradictions, with your unprocessed grief, with the version of you that's been begging for your attention while you kept performing wholeness. That version of you, the quiet one beneath the roles and the obligations and the image, is the one Saturn wants to resurrect. Because once you meet yourself there, in the ruins and the honest rubble of what no longer fits, you don't rebuild the old life. You begin to create something that has never existed before, a path that is fully yours, one that doesn't depend on validation, one that doesn't betray your soul for belonging, one that finally feels like home, not because it's easy, but because it's real. So let it fall apart. Let the illusions burn. Let the false identities crumble. What's happening is not your ending, it's your emergence. The ego may call it a collapse, but your soul knows better. It knows this is the clearing, the sacred demolition before the next creation. And though you may not know who you're becoming yet, trust that the version of you who walks through this fire will be the most honest, unfiltered, undeniable version you've ever met. That is the gift Saturn came to give you, not comfort, not approval, but liberation, if you're willing to receive it.